recording. So we will start by building the app or the to-do app. The first thing we discussed that there is a to-do app container kind of. So we need to create that one first. So we will say to-do container or to-do app. Okay. We'll just close it like that. That's cool. So it's to do app. We need to create this component. So I'll say import to do app from. I will put it in a folder called components, and I will say to do app. Of course, I still didn't create it. So I will go to components. Yes. New file to do app.js, and I will say export, or let's import React first. Remember, from React export. Let's create class to do app extends React dot component. Okay, and we have the render. Whoa, crazy. And we will just say hello. Make sense? Now every time don't code until the end, and after that you run your app because you find a lot of shit errors. So write a little bit of code, test. Write a little bit of code, test, because you can see which change you have introduced, and you can double check that. Make sense? So I would say yard start, npm start, just to not confuse you. I have the app here. It should say hello. Cool. Import, yeah, because we didn't actually export, so we say export default to do app. We have hello. Clear? Now inside the to-do app, we discussed that we need two components. Okay, so we will say a div. Let's say class to-do app. Okay. Class name. Thank you. That will make it. Actually, so a few days ago they released a new version of React, and they changed class name to class. But
wow, some new confusion.
Yes, so they said, but still, but you are not using the new version of React, and no one is using it.
Okay.
It was released just, but they decided to just, and there was like a big discussion yesterday on Twitter about it. So at least I saw it yesterday, but they decided. But just to see, like class name or class is the same thing. They said it's class name better than class, because usually like a lot of tools they will get confused between this class and this class. So they will say, okay, let's name it class name. Fairly simple. Okay? And inside the div, we will render two components. To do add. Okay? To do list. Make sense? To do add is not defined, to do list is not defined. We need to define them. So we say import to do add from. We are already inside components, so we don't need to say components, because we are not. You can see that here. To do add is already inside component, so we don't need to mention components. So we say to do add. Okay, and we say to do list. Make sense? Not defined. We need to define two components. To do add.js. New file. To do list.js. Make sense? I will just copy paste this code here and remove everything from it. So I will say it's not good to copy paste. Not good. I will not do that. I will write it by hand. Import
Thank you.
React from React. That's not good. It's like you're punishing me. Why didn't copy? Why didn't copy? What? So we say class, or let's start with the function. Okay, function to do add. We can define a component as a class or as a function. The function is missing state and the life cycle. So we say props here. We say return. Add to do or to do add test match. So we say export default to do add. Okay, this one we can copy this and we put it here. So in the to-do list, I will import React and name it to-do list and export to-do list and say here to-do list. Make sense? It's like all in one line. Cool. But does it make sense? Add to do. Even me, I cannot read it. But we in the to do app we are rendering to do add and to do list. To do add is add to do, which is add to do here, and the second one to do list. So two things. Make sense? In the to do list, we need another component. List item, precisely. So we will hard code it. We will say div or we will say UL because it's a list, so it's better to use like list. So it's a UL, and let's say to do item. Make sense?
Do you have to make it as an ally? Not necessarily.
It's good to follow the because like there is semantic stuff. So it's like when you say a footer doesn't have any style or header. It's the same as div. You can use div, but it just gives some sort of semantic to your web page. If someone will reading it, or the search engines like Google and Bing and like the search engines, when they will say footer, they will recognize that this is the footer of the website. The header is more important. Let's extract the information from the header so we can rank higher.
Okay.
So it's really giving like semantics. There is nothing visual.
Yeah.
Even in H1, it's a title, but you can give it a font size and make it smaller and make it look like a P. We can agree about that. We can make an H1 like P, but it's about semantics. So we're just giving some sort of semantics. So we are rendering the list. I will not use div to render the list. Make sense? But there is nothing wrong. It's just about like kind of following conventions and semantics about the web. So I need another component called to do item from just to do item. Make sense? I will save it. It will complain. There is no to do item. I will create a new file. I will say to do item.js.
Zoom in more.
Yes, sure. This way. Here. So what I need to do, I need to import React from React. I need to create the component and export it. So how to create the component? Either functional or class, whatever. Let's go with the function. It's simpler. So function to do item precisely takes props from the parent that will render this component. We will return li because it's nested inside the UI, so it doesn't make sense actually to render div. HTML semantics. We are still in the web, so you're in the UI, you're inside a bunch of allies. So we can say here ally. Okay, let's hard code the text. Hello. We need one more thing, which is exactly default export. Default export to do item. Now we can consume it from other places, which is for instance here. So we can actually render 3 instead of 1, and it will render 3. I'm out to do hello. Clear? But now we have been just kind of translating this model to the code, and just with kind of what's this? It's my company code. It's cool. Right. So this is like
Recording.
what?
Are you recording?
Yes, I'm recording. That's cool. Keep asking the question because like I used to forget. So just like mention it.
It's very important at home to watch the
Exactly. I agree with you completely. So now let's get back to the root of our application, which is to do app. So what we need actually is we need to pass an array here to the to-do list. Okay? So we say like for example items here, it's an array. Okay, and this array will be consumed, or we will pass it because we are running to-do list. We go to do to-do list, and we can access it here inside props. So if we will say props dot items, I will get the array.
Yeah.
If I will say, so I'm passing here items to to-do list. Clear? In to-do list, the props will contain just one property, which is items. Stuff that I get from my from the parent, from the ancestor, which is items. So if I will say here, I'll just say console.log props. I will go to the browser. I will open it. I will zoom in. I will see an object, of course, that has items, and it's empty. From where this items is coming? From this props. Where this prop is coming from? It's you should check who's rendering the component, and who's rendering the component is the to-do app. So you can see here to-do list. It's giving me items. Cool. So if I will see here hello, or whatever, I will say an array with one item, which is 3. Okay, we are communicating. Props, we are going down, passing informations from ancestor to children. Okay, makes sense. But if we will keep adding items here, I need a way actually to add items here. So we discussed that if you click the button, it will add a new item. Okay, so it doesn't make any sense to inline the items here because it's like it's something, it's dynamic. I need to add to it. So I will just say items here, okay, and I would say const items equal an array. First thing, we said we will populate the to-do list with 3 items. Remember that in the homework?
Yeah.
So we will go here, we will copy this. You can see here I have all the items. Okay? So I can say items. Now if I will go to this, sorry. Oh yeah, crazy stuff. Where is this shit? I lost sense of everything. Yeah, it's this one. So items, it's an array that contains 3 items: 0, 1, 2. Description, done, description, done, description, done, which is kind of description for the to-do list and if it's done or not. Here. So we will just render the to-do list. So instead of rendering dummy data here, we'll actually loop through the array, and for each entry inside the array, we will render one to-do item. Okay? So for each entry in this object, for the 0, to-do item with description, done. Second to-do item, third to-do item. How we will do that? We use map. Map will transfer the object to a to-do item. Make sense? So we will say, first thing, I want to insert JavaScript code. So I will put it here. Okay, so I will say props dot items dot what? I want to map over it. Okay, and the map I will give it a function. And what's the parameter here? It's the to do. We can say just to do, you know, because we already have something to do item called, so we don't have like collision of names. No, because it's an object that contains description, and so we can say here to do item. We can pass it two properties. Let's say text to do dot description, because here it's description. So we will make description called text inside the component. That's it. And another thing, let's say it's called done. To do dot done. Now I will take this from here.
Can we see to do item? It's signature, right? To do item, yes.
We are not consuming. Now we will start coding it. Now it's just dummy. Now we will start putting the props inside it.
So where we put our items, to do items,
What do you mean?
probably inside the list.
Yeah, we will render a lot of to do item. We will render 3 to do items here.
Yeah, we will put the set of array.
Yeah.
Of to do list.
Yeah.
Is it inside the to do app?
Inside the to do app, yes. Inside the to do app, there's an array.
Yeah.
Inside that file, we pass it to the to do list. Okay.
So we are in the to do app.
We are in to do app. We pass it to do list. We get it here. Here we loop through it, and each object we pass it individually to the to do item. Make sense? But the do item is not really consuming that. We can double check. We can say console.log props again in another component. Whoa. So this sorry. Yeah, to do the description. Thank you. To do the description, because we are accessing.
We see all.
Yes, thank you. No, this is something else. This is a warning from. This is warning. So you need to differentiate between warnings and errors. All of them are in red because you should solve them. But we'll discuss this warning in a second, but not now. Okay. So we will see that each. This is from the first to do item. This is from the second to do item. This is from the third to do item. So the first to do item got text and done. Second text and done. Third text and done. Make sense? Clear until now? So we will just do this. We will say UL. We will say props dot text. Boom. Make sense? And second thing, I will render a checkbox, because we discussed that we need a checkbox. So I will do this. I will render. I will say span. I will put the text inside the span, and before that, I will say input type equal checkbox. I will close it. We have a checkbox now. We have a checkbox. Now one of them is actually checked. It's true. The first one. You can see here in the to-do app. This is true. It's done. So we need to render here that it's done. How we do that? No. We just give it a value because it's either true or false. So we can say checked.
Checked.
And we give it props dot done. Done is true or false, and it will automatically check that.
Can you go back and
Yes.
over this one again?
Because for myself, I tried this one also.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It just needs
So
you need to
we-
follow the data how it's going down.
So we are in to do item
Yeah.
file.
Yeah.
explain that check props done?
Okay, you know what check?
Check if it's done.
No, you know what checked
This-
means?
Yeah, it's
Check.
already checked.
Checked is giving a value if it's checked or not. Okay, so if I will say checked is true,
Ah, okay.
it will be
That's
checked.
all.
All of them they will be checked because it's always true.
Yeah.
If I will say it's false,
False, then nothing.
all of them they will be false. Now I'm passing a value. I will say props dot check. Props dot done.
So this props is handling.
Yeah. So this property actually it's going down until here.
Okay. Why I did not get this? If you go back to the app,
Yeah.
yeah, it's this one because I declared as a state maybe for this reason.
No. We will actually make it a state because we will make it dynamic. You have to update it. Now it's not dynamic. I'm just trying to work you. Now it's like the protocol. Like now it's just a value.
So it's better if we pass the data.
No, like first thing, don't try to complicate stuff. Just do the mockup, like we did here. Translate it to components. And after that, from the components, you can see which data you need inside each component, and you start feeding the data. And when you need to update the data or something, or you pass it to make it props, when you need to change it, you put it in state, stuff like that. Make sense? So don't start by like having the best design with like best state in props. That will be really like difficult. And it's even for me. I just don't. When I start, like, there is something called Storybook. I don't want to overwhelm it, but Storybook. This is really good, like testing kind of UI system. So. Yeah, examples. So this is which do you know Coursera, all of you?
Mm-hmm.
So Coursera, they have their hit here. Oh, Airbnb. Let's check Airbnb.
These are raw examples.
Yes. Oh. So you can see here, this is not really an app. It's an app kind of, but here what I'm doing actually is like I'm having like each component. Can you see? I'm playing with all the components and see like the difference between them. So this app is not really using, or let's say, actually Coursera is better. So this is stuff from Coursera. You can see in Coursera they have like enroll, enrolling, enroll, paid. You saw this before, even if you didn't see it. It's clear. Okay. So this component, like it will receive if it's enrolling, like a props. If it will receive like a prop if it's enrolling or not. You know. So if it's enrolling, it will be loading like this. If it's already enrolled, so this is like you pass props to this component, and it will render differently. Depends on the component. Make sense? But when you build the component, you don't actually about the data. You just like build different state of the component. For example, here they have all the different state. After that, they just pass different props, and it will render differently. But if you try to build this and pass it props at the same time and having state, it will be difficult. So try to divide. They have designers building this. After that, they will see which state they need, and they render the button differently depending on the state. But they don't try to code everything at once. Make sense? For example, this is a product card. Okay? So the way you render this product card, you say like product card, and you give it image, you give it logo, you know, image, logo, stuff like that, title, subtitle, label. This is how you render it. It's like our component to do list and stuff, but this is called product card that will render this with some design. But you can pass anything to it. You can see It's not tied to Coursera API or you need to get data from Coursera. It works everywhere. So they build the component in some sort of, I don't know how to say it, but in a separate environment. So they just build the component, and wherever you give it, the component will accept stuff and it will render these things. So when you build your app or you build something, when you build after that you will couple like a React app with Node.js backend and stuff. You don't think about everything at once. You just build the React component, you finish it. After that you start rendering what you want, and not rendering what. You get the idea a little bit? Is it clear? I want feedback. Is it clear? Clear or still?
Still shaky.
But do you get the idea that these components, they don't need like a lot of stuff to render. You can render them everywhere because they just accept props. So if I will do this, I will give it props check. If I will do this, props and check.
So this site storyboard, it dissects React sites and it dissects them into the.
No, it's like websites or companies. They will show you which components they have.
Okay.
They will show you all the components. So if you work in a company, you will have a lot of components. They will open source it. They will this is make a little bit of sense.
Yes.
So Coursera, they use this stuff. Radio like.
So to go back to the example of Facebook, they would have a large catalog of all their like buttons, dislike buttons.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the stuff. But this stuff they don't need API or something. Here we are not doing course. Like these are just dummy data. You could see here in the card. I'm just passing any random shit here. And it works. So I don't need to pass stuff from Coursera and put it inside the component. So you build the component in some sort of, anyone can reuse them. This is why we are building this way. You build static, after that you start upgrading. But you never put logic inside the component. Because it would be hard to reuse it. Let's say Facebook, they would reuse the like and put it inside Instagram. It's the same company. Or they would just use it in the web in the website, but in another, instead of liking post, you would like an event or something. Imagine if liking a post was inside the like button. They cannot reuse it. Because every time you click it, you would like the post. So you will render like, and you feed it with what you want to do. You will say, when someone click you, go to this API, or do this. Go to / post or / something. And if you render it in the event, you say, when someone will click you, go to / event. So it's like you customize the component, and you pass them props, and depending on like those props, they will. Make sense? Clear. So what we are missing now is the input and the add. Let's go to input and add. This is the to-do add. Remember? We're under to-do list and to-do add. We'll go to-do add. We'll say div class name to-do add. Here we'll say this input type text. Now here we'll say button. Add to do. Clear? But nothing will happen. Now when I want to click the button, this is the next thing. When you click the button, it will get, if there is hello here, it will get the text here, wherever text, if it's empty, and it will add it to the list. So these two components, they need to communicate. That's technique. These are two siblings. They cannot really communicate together. It's not good. You need someone to orchestrate, otherwise they will fight. They will literally fight, because before React, there was like components communicating together and stuff, and this will communicate with this and that, and the component will try to remove this and render this, and it will become a mess. So always there's like a higher authority that it's maintained. Yeah. So what we will do here before that, let's just go to a smaller scope. So we have the hello here, and when I click add to do, I want to get the text from this input. So I need whatever text inside the input. How I can do that? Usually, you already did like vanilla JavaScript. You say document.getElementById, and you give it the input. You have the input, and you say input.value or something like that. Make sense? But this is React. It doesn't work like this. Yeah, but we just need to. Why we will jump to that land? Why we need to go to state and shit? So usually you just like say give me. You have reference to the input, and you say. You all like. I think you tried that before. All of you. You will already have the input, and you say, for example, you can go to. You can do this. I can go to Google. I can do this. This is the input. Okay. So ID is this. So I will say document dot get element by ID. Shit. Give it this. I will get the input. So the input is this. You can see the browser is highlighting it. Okay. After that, I will say input. Cool. So input now, it's our input. So if I will say input.value, it's empty. Hello, input.value, it's hello. This is how we do it usually, with just vanilla JavaScript. Make sense? But in React, actually, this is bad. You know why? Because you are relying on the DOM. And the DOM is like, it's the end of the chain. Everyone is mutating the DOM. So if you rely on the DOM to get your data, that would be too difficult for you. Because a lot of components, maybe they would try to edit, and or React also would try to do that. So it's really good actually to have the DOM as a result of your data. So we had the to-do items, or the array of items, and the DOM was the result of me feeding the items. So I have the data, I have the concrete data. I give the data to the DOM to render. So the DOM responsibility just to render stuff, to show me stuff. But I don't keep state inside the DOM. I don't keep logic inside the DOM. That's bad, kind of. At least for big applications, because the DOM gets really messy and complex. Make sense? So the trick in React is to work with something called controlled component. You remember this? You will use this for the rest of your life. Controlled component. Yes, it's like component that it's controlled. You control the component. This is uncontrolled component. This component is handling its own state. When I typed here, it will change inside, and when I say value, it will give me the value. So the component is like black box. I just type, give me the value, it will give me the value. But I don't know how this component works, or how this input works. That's not cool. Because we want explicit stuff, we want to see everything. An array going into items, passing down, check, we want to see everything. So our app become maintainable, kind of. So the way we do it in React actually, there is you can see here that there is a variable inside this input, and every time you change the text, that variable will change, and when you say value, you get that variable. We can see like small abstraction like this. It's like something is updating, getting update inside the input. Make sense? It's clear. There is like a variable. You type, you change it. When you say value, it will return the variable. So the way we do it in React, that variable that's inside, we take it outside. What? How? It doesn't matter how. We will code it. But now we are trying to kind of understand what we are trying to do. So instead of having state, the input having its own state, we take the state out. And we will have like I should not say that into video. That's not. So I will delete this. I know that you cannot really see. Can you see now, all of you? Yeah. So we have an input, and the input already kind of has state inside it. So you type, When you say give me the input, it will give you the input. So this is uncontrolled. You are not controlling the component. It's uncontrolled. Make sense? You are not controlling it. It's controlling itself. So the way we do it in React is to build another component. Okay? I'm drawing here is to build another component. This component will have state called, for example, value. You name it wherever you want. Value, input, okay? It's value. When you will pass this value to this input, because you can pass, you can say, for example, here, you can say, for example, you can say value okay, it doesn't really work, but
Should have changed.
we can say value. Okay, JavaScript is better than HTML. So the thing is, like, you can this value attribute, you can pass it here. Not just because there is another value here somewhere. I don't want to read that, but you understand that you can pass a value here, and the value will be taken from this input. So we will actually give the input what to render, which value. So the input will not really displaying the value that you type. No, it will pass the value that we are passing it. We can check it here, and we can, let's say, value. Let's say hello, or let's do it. So you can see here, it started with let's do it. But I cannot type. Because I said this value, and you will type, the value will not change. Because every time you type, it will render and it will just... Okay? So I'm feeding in a value. So now it becomes controlled. I'm controlling what value to display. But I cannot type. So we lose the functionality of typing.
Empty string, or what will happen?
What?
If you put the value empty string.
It will be empty.
Same.
It will be the value empty here. You type,
Oh,
it remains empty.
Okay.
So the value that you will put here, it will never change.
So just put placeholder. That's
No, but if we put placeholder wheel back, we will have this component here, the Google component, which is controlled, in control. Okay, so we are trying to make it controlled. So the way we do it actually, we pass a variable here. We pass, for example, like input value. Okay, you pass a variable here. So this variable will pass it here. But technically, when you will type, it will not change because the variable, it's just one value. Passing string or a variable is the same thing. Variable will be a string at the end because it's just reference to a string. Okay, so you will pass a variable, it will not change. So what we are trying to do here, every time you type, we will listen for typing. So we will say like, don't,
like event has that.
yeah,
That's later. Yeah.
for each letter, precisely.
On change.
on change.
No, on change will not.
HTML.
Just a second. Input events.
Yeah.
What?
When I saying lost everything from HTML, it's been too long. It's not-
We can say, for example, on key up. So we can say input dot on key up. No. Add event listening on key up. So we will have the event here. So we can say console.log e.target.value. You remember this? because the event will have the target was triggered in, and the value of the target. So the target will be the input because the event was like fired from the input.
Okay, say that again.
So the event where it was fired
Yeah.
in the input. So the target is the input.
That is it.
So we say value
Yeah.
on the input, like we did
This
here.
target is
It's like doing here inputted value, but we get actually the target from the. Okay. So every time now I type, it doesn't really work, but yeah, everything is actually. Yeah. No, I want to use the key up because when you are done, when you leave the key up.
Ah, okay. If it's JSX, the case automatically.
Yeah. So you can see here. You can see here. Hello. Right. Everything I type here. Hello. You see? It's like recording everything that I've typed. The last value, and it will give it to me when I am done committing. So the way we do it in React is like I will subscribe or add an event listener to the input, and every time the input will change, technically it will not change, but it will give me what key kind of I pressed. I change this variable. And when I change this variable, this input should run again. And it will run, for example, it's empty when I type h, so this variable will be empty. Okay? Let's say v. Let's v, like this is like over time. V, it's empty. It's empty. Okay? It's just string. When you type something, we will change v. Let's say we type h, like here. We will make v 1h. The variable, not the input. And the input will change, not because we typed, but because this variable changed. We will feed in the next variable. So just imagine that I'm having a variable here, passing it to the input. So I just changed this variable because the input is telling me I've changed, and I passed that variable to the input again. So if you will type again, so we had h here. If you will type again, let's say E. So when you are done, you will press E, but it will not really kind of show E here. No, because it's the value, it's static. The value is static, it will not show it. It's just H. It will fire a value, and the new value would be HE. We will put HE here, and value will be passed again to the input, and HE would be displayed.
It's a little bit confusing.
Yes, it's like circle, like fast change, fast change. But just try to get the concept that we are saving the input in a variable and passing the variable again. How we will do it actually? It's kind of simple. Yeah, but it's now we need to change the input value, and the input will change because of the input value. So we will say on change. We'll give it a function, like the out event listener.
Yeah.
And I will say console.log e.target.event. Same shit. Clear?
Value or event?
Oh, sorry. That value. Thank you. Actually, I'm not really wearing my lenses, so I'm a little bit off. Yeah, so it's saying that input value is not defined. Here, it's not defined. So let's say just const input value. Let's say hello. Okay. Or let's start with empty. It's better. Let's say you type F, but it's not changing. So I'm getting the last thing that I've typed, but I'm not changing. Why? Because I need to change the input value. When I change the input value, if it will be, for example, every time this will change, I type H, I will make H here, it will be H here. So you get the thing? I'm subscribing to the onChange and saying whenever you change, run this, when the input will fire this, I will change the input and the input will become the new value of the input component or the input.
Is this how all inputs are done in React applications?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. This is like the standard.
Okay.
Of course, it's a bit difficult, but by practice you will get it. Of course, like no one was really like. But do you see like lightly a bit about like what's happening?
Yeah.
It's just like we have like central place when the input change, we'll change that variable and we will feed in that variable again to the input. But the input is never controlling something inside it. We took that value outside. Okay? Because we said that when the onChange will fire, we will change that variable inside the component. When we took the example of Google here, like when you type a variable inside, the input will change. Now we took that variable outside. Kind of clear?
Kind of.
But the thing, that variable, whenever you change it, we need to re-render the input again. So the input will get a fresh value. So it doesn't make any sense to put it as const or put it here. What's the best place to put it? Is like state. Because whenever you change that input, this input will re-render again, or the whole component will re-render again. Why? Because we want the input to get the new value. So every time you emit set state, the component will re-render with the new value that you have set. Make sense? Now we are coupling state with input. A little bit clear, confusing a little bit, but it's normal because it's completely whole new pattern. But is it a little bit clear? So we will have state in this component, and we will make it a class component so we can have state on it. But there is only one thing. I don't want to save the state of this input in this component. You know why? Because when you click the button, I need to add to this list. And if I will keep it inside this component cannot communicate with this component. So I need to make the state. We call this lifting the state up to the common ancestor. So if I have two components and they both need the state, so I need the state here to type, I need the state here because when I click, I add it here. Okay? So we call this lifting the state up to the common ancestor. So instead of putting it here or here, we have the parent component and we will put the state there. Make sense?
Yeah, two children can communicate with each other.
Can communicate.
Like the items here.
Yeah. So what we will do here is we will have constructor. This is boilerplate, constructor, super, props. Nothing to discuss here. Passing props to the parent. Done. I want state. So I say this.state, I give it an initial value. It's not really the concrete value, but initial value. So I say value, because it's an input, so I start with an empty string. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say value equal this.state.value. So I will pass passing the list from the app to the to-do list. Now we will pass the value, which is inside the state, not props, to the to-do at throw props. So I will pass this value. It doesn't matter if it's string or it's coming from the state. At the end, it's just string. This.state.value would be what? A string. Okay? Even if it's state, but it's string at the end. So I will say value here. So here, technically, I can delete this. I don't need it. So props will contain value because to do item is receiving value. So I can say here, for example, props.value. It will be what? It will be whatever I put here. So if I will put hello here, I will go here and I say Now it's hello.
Hello.
It's like taking this value from this component. So the to do up is really relevant to this component. Make sense? So now we are feeding an input, a value, but not from really the component or the current component that is rendering the input, but from a parent component. So a parent component is passing me props that I'm using as the value of the input. Now the second part, which is updating the input, because it's in this inside the state. So every time you type, we want to tell the parent, I'm changing. So the parent needs to give me a function so I can call him again. How we will do that? I will put a function here. Let's say add to do. Okay. And let's say you remember binding? Did someone read about binding here?
Yeah.
Links up to this key.
Yeah.
This
So this here, it will be this class. Okay? Technically, this refers to this class because I'm inside the class. Or at least this function is bound to this class. Depends how I call it. But if I would pass add to do to this component, so let's say on change, call the add to do. We need to bind it first. Because now I'm not calling the function. I will call the function inside this component because I'm receiving it as props. So if I will call it, this will not be this class. It will be this class. Because who's calling the function? This will be binded to it. Make sense? So the way we do it in React, we say this dot add to do equal. I override it. This dot add to do dot bind this. This is called hard binding. What does it mean? You never change the value of this. You call it here, you call it in another word, you call it in another project. This will be this class because I'm binding it to this class. So I'm overriding this function. So when I say now this dot to do add, it's not really this function. It's this function binded, and I put it here. Make sense? Make a little bit of sense? So each function you have it inside the class, you just bind it like this. I don't want to hear myself now. 2 times like. Yeah, of course. Yeah. No worries. Of course.
I found a really good, that fun function guy has a really good bind explanation.
Yes.
Video.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll post it in the video Slack channel.
You post it?
I'll post it right now.
I will post it.
Yeah, his explanation of binding was powerful. It was good.
That's not cool. I will not record this.
Yeah, that was the video I watched and he explained it really well. You gotta fast forward to the end of the video because it gives some weird the history of the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we discussed that we will bind it. Here, everyone is like, of course, you should not be like, you cannot really master binding now, but it's just like to get the idea, because this is what we are trying to achieve, like building blocks, why we are doing this, why we are doing that. After that, when you go home, you have a clear idea, so you can practice. But practicing over something that it's not clear, or you don't know why you are doing this, you will just get lost. So I'm just trying to clear the path, why we are doing this. So why we are binding here? All of you know why we are binding here or not?
Yeah.
Okay, we are binding here, so we make sure that everyone who calls this function, the this inside this function will be this class. It doesn't matter where you call it, because this is the trick about JavaScript. Like when you call a function outside of where it was defined. So I will give you a quick. So let's say I will have object with the name Yunus.
Whoops. You gonna do a break?
Yes, we will.
I think we're gonna switch you out with the other class, so because there are way too many people. For
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one.
I'm willing to do a break in 5 minutes or so. No, no, 7 minutes.
7.
Yes. 35. So we will say a function. Okay. Let's name it. We can just do like say hi. Okay. Say hi. It's a function. That will console.log. And I will say just this dot name. Clear? So if I will say object dot name, it will be Yunus. Object dot say hi, it will be Yunus. The clear part. Now let's say I want to take reference of the. So if I will say object dot say hi, I can call the function, but this will give me the function itself, because it's like variable that's holding the function. So I will say x or func say hi. So func now will contain the function. If I will run the function, it will be nothing. It will be undefined. This dot name would be undefined. You know why? Because the this is not referring the object anymore. Because I'm not calling the function like this anymore. So now I'm calling a function in the context of an object. So the this inside the function would be the object that it's the context, which is this. But if I will say just say hi like this, the this will be undefined. Not undefined, it will be window. There is like weird stuff you can use strict, but just take it. The this will not be because what matters, it's not pointing to anything else. If you have 10 objects, you want the this to point to this object. If it points somewhere else, it doesn't matter.
It's like what you said a couple months back. This does not call for where it's there.
It's how you call it.
Where you call it. Not
Yeah, how
where
you
define it. That was it. So where you where
I said where you define it, it doesn't matter.
yeah
Where you call it,
where you call it.
it what matters. So I define it inside the object. It doesn't matter. How I call it, it matters. If I will call it like this in the context of an object, the this inside it will be this object. If I will call it like this, the this will not point to that object. Okay? So say hi. No. Yeah. So we call it func. Okay?
Yeah.
I want this func to point to my object. The object. That object. Even that it's not called in the context of object. How I can do that? Yes. So if I will say bind object, I can pass this here, but we pass this just because it's this inside it, but we can pass object here. Okay? That actually will give me another function. So it will not run this function. So bind doesn't run the function. It generates another function. So let's say func2, or let's say bfunc. It's not bisexual, it's just it's just a function. So bfunc, okay? So bfunc now it's bound to the. So if I will call bfunc now, it's Yunus. Why? Because it was bound to the object. It doesn't matter now where you call it. Okay? It's bounded. Like it's called hard bounding or static. I don't remember binding. But yeah, so now it's hard. Like It's bound to this object. This is why we are doing. Okay. And another pattern would be doing this. So I would say object dot say hi. So I will override say hi and say equal object dot say hi dot bind object. So I will take the all defined object, the all defined say hi function. Remember when we say object? So I will say object dot say hi. Put something else on it. What I'm gonna put in it? I will say object dot say hi, which is this function. Okay. Bind it to this object, which is by accident the same object that I'm referring to here, and override the old say hi. So I'm taking say hi, the old say hi, binding it, and overriding the say hi. So I'm transferring the say hi. So every time now I will call the say hi. So if I will run this line of code, if I will say hi like this, if I will put it in func object.say hi like this, func would be Yunus always. It doesn't matter. I'm like binding it in the hardware. Clear? This is what's bind, the first one. So now I'm overriding this function to be bounded to this class every time. Make sense? Now I will have like value here, for example. So I will say console.log value. From where the value is coming, we don't know. But what I can see here, I'm giving a function called onChange to the, I'm giving it like the add-to-do. So I'm passing the add-to-do to the onChange. Make sense? So this component to do add, if we will say console.log props T-ball. Oh, I'm refreshing Google. That's crazy. It's not my problem. What's happening inside Google? Yeah, because we are doing this really weird thing here. Add to do is not because I need to say this dot add to do. So you can see here, I'm having the value and onChange is undefined. OnChange should be defined. So no, this add to do. It's this dot add to do. This dot add to do. So what the fuck is this? Just a second. Yeah, because it's capital letter here. It doesn't make any sense to put it capital. And it's add to do. Please correct me. Add to do.
You are moving fast.
I'm sorry.
You are moving fast.
Yeah.
For this reason.
Yeah, okay.
You can see.
I'm just trying to type after when I'm done I can re-explain. So now you can see that onChange is a function. So onChange inside the add to do add, it's a function. From where this function is coming, we are passing it here. So that function is just the add to do. Make sense? So we will take break as
Not change, but need to watch this video over and over at home.